I made a real-life wall charger from Lethal Company that can also charge my phone. In case you've been living under a rock, Lethal Company is this indie horror game about scavenging treasure that you sell to the company. You visit different planets inhabited by various monsters and environments, all to meet your quota. Even after 30 hours in the game, the monsters still scare me. You're allowed to buy tools like flashlights and walkie-talkies that can help with your adventures, but they have a limited battery, which can be recharged by the prop I want to build today. And I don't know if you know this, but when I play games, I have a wireless charger set up on my desk to charge my phone, so my phone doesn't die. And as I'm playing this game and recharging my devices constantly, I see my wireless charger with my phone on it, and suddenly it clicks. I could totally build a real-life wall charger and put a wireless phone charger in it, bringing Lethal Company into the real world. So let's make it. After getting various screenshots of different angles of the in-game charger, I was able to make, in my opinion, a pretty good 3D model of the charger. The hardest part I would say was making sure the tolerances between the parts would fit and that the parts could be separated for easier painting. The hole and channel in the back, which my friends have dubbed its butt crack,
double cheeked up,
is for the USB-C cable that will be able to provide power to the wireless charger. The channel acts as a way to route the cable away from the back so the whole thing can sit flush against the wall. With a total of 5 pieces to print, and all we need is just a little over a roll of filament to print the whole thing. So let's print everything. Next chapter! So I take my 3D files and I drag them into a program called Quota, which is a slicer that basically turns 3D models into readable G-code for my printer to print. Now all I do is press a few buttons and the machine takes care of the rest.
One day later.
About 24 hours into the print, I really hope it doesn't fail. If it fails, I'm taking one of y'all with me. Sadly, I can't 3D print all the parts, and I don't have the supplies on me, so let's go get them. At Home Depot, I was looking for 2 things. Those little metal plugs on the side of it and something to use for the copper tubing. And I found just that. I got these 2 little rubber plugs that each have these 2 little bolt thingies, and I'm gonna take them out of the rubber plug. How I'm gonna do that? I don't know. I also found these refrigerator copper pipes, which are around the diameter that I wanted since the other copper pipes were way too big. Why did I choose that accent? Anyways, for the paint, after a lot of color matching, big thanks to Jordan J Cosplay. Colors are hard for me as a guy, so go follow her right now. We settled on oregano green and bear gray. And when I got home, it took a bit to bend the copper into shape and pry the metal out of the plugs, but in the end, it was really worth it. I also shredded a poor wireless phone charger down to its bare parts to reduce the distance from the phone to the charger. But before we could just go ahead and paint our 3D prints, I am a stickler and I will want to sand every single part until they are buttery smooth. The reason we sand our 3D prints is to get cleaner paint jobs, and to get cleaner paint jobs, there is essentially 2 steps: lowering the hills and raising the valleys of layer lines. When you 3D print something, you are going to have layer lines. These are small little gaps in between each of the layers on the 3D print. Some are slightly higher or slightly lower than other ones, creating what I like to call hills and valleys. The goal is to uniformly meet in the middle. Sanding helps lower the hills of your 3D prints, bringing the higher parts down closer to the bottom. And filling agents like Bondo and Filler Primer help raise the valleys, or layer lines that are slightly lower, to level them out. By mixing these combinations back and forth, you can get a really smooth finish, which creates better paint jobs and removes those pesky layer lines. Once everything's leveled and already smooth, let's get to the painting. Psych! Get back to sanding, you missed a spot! That's the best part about sanding. You'll never have every single part perfectly smooth. If your hands don't feel like you're gonna get arthritis before 30, pick up the sandpaper and sand the prop. You should be able to see your reflection in it. Sorry, you should be able to see your reflection's reflection in it. Only then can you start painting. You're not done yet. Keep sanding. Alright, now we can paint. Even after all that, there is still a large line across the top gray piece, which I decided to resand just to make sure it was as nice as possible. The middle round part was painted with a gray filler primer, and then the body was painted with the green that we decided on earlier. You want to go for nice, even sprays. Not too heavy so that the paint will run, but also not too light, because you want the color to show through fully. Once you've evenly applied coats of paint, then you can start moving on to the finer hand-painted details. I used a red acrylic paint and painted by hand the small red button. The black button I opted not to paint just because it's already printed in black filament, mostly because I'm lazy. So now that everything's painted, let's assemble the whole thing and see if it actually works. The first thing we'll do in assembly is loop the USB-C cable through the hole in the bottom. This is where we can plug in the wireless charger. And after adding a few drops of E6000 and super glue, we can begin assembling the final parts. The next thing we'll do is press fit the top onto the green piece. I thought I would need super glue, but because of how short the tolerances were, I was able to just fit it on, and it stays on just with friction. It took a little pressure and a little bit of wiggling, but once it was on, yeah, I don't think it's ever coming off. And now let's actually install the charger. So I flattened out the copper bar with a mallet and some clamps, but now we need to attach the wireless phone charger onto it. I was going to use a soldering iron, but I've opted to use adhesive instead, just so I don't mess up the electronics. I purposely folded the copper pipes to have this little tiny notch at the end. This will allow me to slide in the charger, and it'll be hooked onto the USB-C charging port. A little super glue, and it's all set. And to actually mount the copper pipe into the model, I did not have a plan for it. I didn't model any holes in it or anything, because I did not know how the copper pipe would turn out. At first, I tried drilling a hole into it, but because of the angles, that proved to be impossible. So what I did next is heat up a soldering iron and shove it into the bottom of the model, creating a melted hole. When I put the copper tubing in there, as the plastic cooled around it since it was still molten plastic, it ended up making a pretty good seal. A couple drops of epoxy and super glue, and I'm pretty confident this thing ain't gonna move. And here's the final result. Now let's finally see if the mobile charger will work. I'm really happy that worked because I did not have a spare wireless charger. And yes, it is a little finicky when putting it up to the charger, but what do you want from me? If for some reason you haven't tried this game, it's like 10 bucks on Steam. Go check out Lethal Company. And that's it. We made the charger. If you enjoyed watching this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below. And if you have any future prop idea suggestions, please feel free to leave them down below. I will try to answer as many of them as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next prop building video.